Twal gwalapu gwalapu de ishad. Es chalchiv CEAB CIAA. Takshablu seedsta twal nuksak gwal skadget. Hello and welcome everybody. It is an honor to be here with you tonight. My name is Sasha LaPointe, and I'm from Nooksack and Upper Skagit. My parents are John and Jill LaPointe. My grandmother was Lois Dodson. My great-grandmother was Vi Takshablu Hilbert. And I want to take just a moment here to just say how grateful I am to be here in this beautiful Coast Salish territory on the tribal lands of the Duwamish, Suquamish, and Muckleshoot people. And I also want to take a moment to not only welcome you to this gorgeous evening, but to ask that you all consider the title of this beautiful gathering, Netsamat, one heart, one mind. It's about unity and togetherness. And I'd like, as you watch the beautiful performances, as you hear the words tonight, to hold that in your thoughts and consider what Netsamat might mean for you. As a Skagit woman, I hear Netsamat and I think of our word hutch. Our hutch is here. It's a knowledge we carry close to our hearts. Our intellect and our thinking might come from up here, but that deeper knowledge, that way of being, comes from the place that is tied to our spirit. It's what guides us towards compassion for all beings, for relatives and strangers, for the land and water, for everything in this world. When I'm feeling lost or angry at the state of the world because there's a lot to be angry about, I try to quiet that anger and that hopelessness and listen to what's here, what's in my hutch. Our grandmother taught us many valuable lessons, and one of those lessons was about healing. Rather than giving up or giving into anger, she taught us that healing was the way. And not just healing for ourselves, but healing for the world. And not just having compassion for ourselves, but having compassion for the stranger on the street, for communities across the ocean. She taught us to work hard and to not be lazy. She believed in the gift of giving assignments. She still gives us jobs to do, even from the spirit world, because the work is never done. When I think of Netsamat, it is impossible not to think of the story of lifting the sky, because it's going to take all of us, despite our differences, despite our different places of origin or our languages. The story is about coming together and learning that one word. It was one of my favorite stories, one I still think of often. And in the spirit of Netsamat, I'd like to share a short excerpt from my book, Thunder Song, because this book was one of those assignments from Grandma. And I think that at its heart, it's asking for that same idea of togetherness. Because the things we are trying to heal are not site-specific. These are not just the wounds of our communities right here, but the wounds across the world: genocide, violence, the depleting of sacred resources and lands. This is happening all over. So I want to share the last section of an essay I wrote during the pandemic, shortly after a trip to the ocean, during a time I was feeling a bit hopeless, a bit angry, full of fear for our communities as elders were getting sick and people were being murdered in the street, full of fear for our land as forest fires filled the sky with smoke and ash. And this was a time I needed to quiet my anger, my hopelessness, and listen to my hutch, and remember the lessons in those stories grandmother shared. Smoke from forest fires settled over the Pacific Northwest like a dark cloud. We had been in the house for days. We had cabin fever. One morning, my love helped me secure my N95 mask over my face. Then he tied a bandana over that. "You need to get out of the house," he said. My asthma made it dangerous to breathe the smoke-choked air, but he seemed to understand that being trapped inside was taking its own toll. As we walked along the waterfront, I felt a panic rising in me. The world, unrecognizable as it was, terrified me. We talked about the rallies. We talked about defunding the police. We ran through the checklists of our loved ones, trying to take inventory of who was still healthy. As a Native woman, the word pandemic is particularly frightening for me. I am descended from survivors of the smallpox epidemic. I come from a history of attempted genocide. When it became too hard to breathe, my partner let me lean against him as we made our way slowly up the trail. By the time we reached the car, we found it blanketed in ash, and I noticed for the first time how it fell around us like snowflakes. It was almost beautiful, until I remembered what it was, until I remembered the fires and entire neighborhoods erased. I looked up at the apocalyptic sky, the red sun, all science fiction and wrong. I tried not to think of how it could get worse. I couldn't help but think about Cormac McCarthy's The Road. My partner had to gently nudge me out of my dystopian fantasy, and I looked at him over the hood of the car with tears in my eyes. "The sky is all wrong," I told him. "The world is not the way it is supposed to be." That's when he knew to take me home, to get a pot of cedar and rosemary boiling. My mother had instructed us over the phone how to use this traditional medicine and that it would help me breathe. A day later, a strong wind came and cleared the skies long enough for us to crawl out onto the roof. I was still haunted by the images of it all, the rising cases, the police brutality. There was a grief growing inside of me, bigger than anything I had ever known, and it started to break me. I was quiet for days at a time. I began to dream again of a storm over a sea. That's when my partner asked me to crawl out onto the roof with him. He asked me once more for a story. Outside on the roof, I hugged my knees to my chest and sobbed. I looked out over Tacoma, the reservation, the casino frozen midway through construction, stopped by everything that was happening. I cried for the things we had lost, for the world as it seemed to be breaking. But it was his turn to take care of me, so my love pointed past the casino to the water beyond. "Remember La Push?" he asked, and pointed his finger toward the peninsula, toward the place we had spent on the beach. "Tell me a story." And I remembered my phone, my recording. I pressed play, and the beach came back to me. Right here on the rooftop on a hot summer day, we listened to the fire crackling and the waves crashing. I closed my eyes and remembered my grandmother's face. I sucked in a breath and I told him, for the first time, our story. In the beginning, we were lost in darkness. We fought to understand each other as we hit our heads along the fallen sky. With so many different languages, we had to learn one word, and that word was Yahau. We went into the forest and found strong branches, sturdy sticks. We propped them up along the sky, and on the command of our shared word, we worked together. We pushed, and we pushed, and we pushed. We pushed the sky up to where it belongs and lifted the world out of darkness together. Enjoy your evening, everyone. It's going to be a beautiful one. Thank you.